This is a triptych of wall hangings that come in the same style as the Bison Gate hanging that we've already seen. Once again, paying homage to that kind of Baroque or the medieval stone castle space. I consider this the entryway, and this is what you would walk into when you entered the gallery. Let's start with the middle one, which you can see is much larger than the rest. It's titled Et in Arcadia Ego, which means even in paradise, I am here. The title's taken from a painting by Nicolas Poussin, in which several young men in the woods, in a very pastoral space, come across a stone sarcophagus with this written on the side. So it's a reminder of death being ever present. And she's turned that a little bit on its head, where the bison has returned despite this Baroque scene of opulence taking place. This is from an etching by a French artist named Bosse, B-O-S-S-E. And she's colorized it, she's removed a dining companion and obviously changed the context completely. As with the other, this landscape is from a photograph that she took of the Waniskewin area, of the grounds of Waniskewin. And this is from an etching about taste of a series of 5 etchings of the 5 senses. So this is taste. She's removed this man's dining companion and extended the servant here. So on the one hand, you have the bison becoming the dining companion of this very, very ornate setup. There's even a little dog who has his own fancy feast on a piece of china. And on the other hand, you have the bison who still has his symbiotic friend joining him. This piece, as you can see, is surrounded by wildlife that's native to the area, and it's very much land-based wildlife. I say that in opposition to Actus Sanctorum, which is this textile on the left. Actus Sanctorum translates to deeds of the saints. The scene here is much more abstracted than the other. There's a lot of perspective that doesn't really make sense, a lot of anatomy that she's taken liberties with, this very collage approach to creating these textiles. But in every case, what they're doing is purifying the water in some way. Here we have a unicorn, and this fountain, once again taken from the Hunt of the Unicorn tapestries. The unicorn is said to be able to purify water by touching it with their horn. Beaver, photos taken from Barkhouse's property. Bison mother and calf here overlooking. What Barkhouse is really interested in here is that bison, as opposed to cattle, really tend to their water supply, their drinking supply. They don't contaminate it with feces or food. There's a respect for it. So bison are much more responsible stewards of their own land, which is, again, this recurring theme of the prairies waiting for the bison to return. We moved over here because these borders are filled with wildlife that's associated with wetlands and water. And then the third of this triptych is titled Les Vieilles Connaissances, and it's the most minimalist of any of the wall hangings that we have here. This is French for the old acquaintances. I'm repeating myself, acquaintances, not friends, right? There's a relationship, there's a necessity for the other without any projection of human emotions onto this, right? Rubbing rocks are rocks that are not of the ground that we stand on, but they were deposited as the glaciers were receding and melting. They would carry huge rocks with them and then deposit them on the ground. So they would never get absorbed into the earth. They can be as big as a house or as big as a car. This is one that's in Waniskewin, a bison rubbing rock. You can tell rubbing rocks because they've been smoothed out and they're trampled around the bottom. So it almost always looks like they've just been tossed into wet soil with this little indent around. And that's because the bison will rub against them, just like it sounds, in order to scratch an itch or remove their winter coats as they start to shed. And then they trample the nearby earth. And the rubbing rocks, despite the absence of bison, continue to look this way. As the bison get returned, the conceit here is that they have somehow missed each other, that the bison will recognize the rubbing rock upon that confrontation. And again, with this more minimal composition, the boundaries have again become more minimal and more explicitly kind of abstracted and Baroque on the top.